Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning to those who it is morning for. Welcome to the Kerbal Space Program 2 AMA. It's going to start in about 5 minutes now, so I have it pulled up here, and we will get into it once they start actually presenting. I don't know if they're going to be a little bit late, but welcome, everybody. Let's give a chance for people to get in here. I know it's a weird time to be streaming, but it's when they decided to do the AMA. I didn't do the last one because, I mean, I wanted to, but I wanted to see how it went because I didn't know how they were going to do an AMA. If it was going to be a video or audio, or if it was just going to be, typed out questions. So, but this will be an interesting look into what the, what the development process is going to look like, especially from a design standpoint, because that's what this is with the design director. So that'll be interesting. Just gonna wait for everyone to get in here. Oh. It's on Discord. That's where they're broadcasting from. So if you're in the KSP2 Discord, you can also listen that way. Just give it a couple more minutes. Jesus, everyone's jumping in here. Should I go ahead and make it full screen? There. I mean, this is what I'm looking at. This is the people. This is the AMA right here. And this everyone just came in all at once here. Oh boy. Welcome, welcome. Oh man, oh Jesus Christ. So many people just came in. 187, 187, 190, over almost 200. All come in the last 5 minutes. Jeez Louise. Oh. Well, you know what they say. Oh, they just put an announcement out. Hey, Kerbonauts, our AMA with the design director Shanna Markham starts in 5 minutes. Tune in now to the comm center to listen in. That's where we are. It's weird to do this midday on a Thursday. I don't know. It just feels weird. I'm not gonna have not as many people are gonna watch this just because it's such an odd time right now. Welcome, Lejeune. Hey, I can't stay on stream. Just popping in to say hello. Hello. Yeah, it's gonna be a weird stream. It's probably gonna be mostly people watching on VOD, but we'll be here. I thought it would be interesting to have this on record, get some real-time commentary on this. Got a couple more minutes. Got a couple more minutes before it starts. Jeez. Jesus Christ. How many people are in here? 316 now. Good lord. I'll stay as long as I can. Good. Stay. Please. I know everyone's at work. That's the problem. It's such a weird... Everyone's got things to do at 1 p.m. on a Thursday. But it is what it is. It could have been Friday. Could have been Saturday. Saturday would have been cool. Oh. Looking to see if I recognize anyone's names. Some people are very persistent in the KSP Discord. You see a couple familiar faces. Approaching 400. Welcome, everybody, as you're getting settled in. Welcome, welcome. Oh, boy. Boy, oh boy. Ooh, 1 more minute. Unless they start late, but should be good. What's going on in the chat here? Nothing. Okay, that's just an announcement thing. All good. How's everyone doing today? This is like an audio-based thing, so if you want to throw this on in the background, if you got stuff to do and want to throw this on and just listen to it, it's basically just going to be audio. I mean, I'll have this. This is what the screen's going to look like most of the time. But there you go. I don't know what... I was curious, because I mean, the one about the the one about the technical aspects of the game was like, it was an interesting one to listen to, after the fact, but I don't know what they're going to talk about. I mean, I know they're going to talk about design stuff, but I wonder how it's going to like, if they're going to talk about the future stuff, or if they're going to talk about improvements on what's currently in the game. Like, I know they're going to definitely talk about vehicle interiors, like IVA, because that's the biggest thing that I think people are talking about in terms of like stuff that needs to get into the game soon.
Can you guys hear me okay? No?
Here they go. Should I pull up chat?
Good.
Chat.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am joined here today with Shayna Markham. How are we doing? I'm good. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. I'm very excited for us to hold this special AMA, where we're going to get to know Shayna a little bit more and talk a little bit about KSP 2. I think we're having some microphone issues. We're working through, though. It's okay. We'll get there just a second.
Interesting.
I might have stepped on the cord.
Okay. Oh. I may mute it every now and then and give my own thoughts on stuff, but
as long as we start within 5 minutes, we're not technically late. That's the rule I like to run with, so I feel good about that.
Welcome, everyone.
Coda's on the case, though. We're confident we're going to get through this.
I don't know how the system works. I know they're going to like, you can like raise your hand and like they'll unmute you and stuff. But I think there's people who've already given like questions. I'm not going to go question if that's what anyone's wondering.
I know, we checked the mic like 3 times. It's super. It's just a typical fashion. It's okay. I still feel like I might have broke it. I couldn't figure out how to make mine work. No, we're not muted. We're about to share a microphone in a second, though.
Sure. You guys can hear okay, right?
Be best friends.
That's good. Mike, aux, yep. Yeah, everything should be good. Yeah, we can hear. Good. Oh, where's everyone at? I mean, I get it. I get it. It's a weird time. Although people said they wanted me to do more midday streams.
Just a second,
so get
folks.
other people in other time zones.
I'm gonna hop up to try and make sure that I didn't pull the cord out here.
Did they break it? Apparently someone stepped on a cord. We may have some they may have some technical difficulties. The stream may be very short. There's 500 people listening to the AMA right now.
Hello.
And
hello.
Magic, we got
hello. Okay. Hello. Okay.
That is not Shayna, though.
Enough of me. Okay.
There we go.
All right, let's wiggle around. Things look okay. Do I sound like a human being, not a lizard?
Sounds just like you. We're perfect. I turned the voice recording off.
Fantastic.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll start this over. We'll try this one more time. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I am joined today with Shayna. Now that we're made through our technical difficulties.
Howdy.
If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Shayna, I don't know if many of the community have seen you yet.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Shayna Markham. I am the design director here at Intercept. I also serve as a lead designer for Kerbal Space Program 2. I've been in the industry for, I have to gauge this by how old my cat is. It'll be 18 years this year. Run through a variety of companies, including Treyarch, Gas Powered Games, and Wargaming. Came here to Kerbal about 3 years ago. I get to gauge that by how old my daughter is. And I'm really excited to be able to sit here and talk to y'all today and answer some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And with no further ado here, I'll kind of jump into some of the questions.
Sure.
Our first one here is from the Discord user Enjoyer. What is a design director?
It's a great question. So a design director is somebody who is responsible for the standards and practices and excellence of a particular discipline. So in my case, I would be the person overseeing all designers over here at Intercept. I'm also responsible for making sure that the designers here have the room to learn and grow and explore their passions and become better game designers every day.
Awesome. We definitely see that every day, and I hope the community sees it as well. Our next one here is from user Epic on the Discord.
Mhm.
What has been your favorite thing to work on so far?
Oh, what is my favorite thing to work on so far? Uh, you know, I think the VAB has been one of my favorite pieces. It's that builder covers really a whole lot of functionality, and when you look at it and just kind of like spend day by day just trying to go through your basic builds, there's a lot of like cool moments in there where you can find things that help new players understand how to build and fly and like what's available to them. And at the same time, that kind of exploring that kind of design space gives the opportunity for more expert players to kind of shortcut and get to the things that they care about faster. And so that's one of those moments of design where you get like a
Are we
win-win on
talking
both
about
ends, and
like
it makes me feel really
the
cool.
interface
Well,
mostly?
that's awesome. I definitely can see that. Jumping to the next one here, we have from that one guy on the Discord. What is the planet you are most proud of that we have not seen?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, I think it
Interiors?
is for me.
Vehicle
It's
interiors?
Glumo, which is it's a Saturn-like planet in another star system.
Uh,
I'm a sucker for rings, and there are some really beautiful like shots that we had as we've been exploring that place. That just
that's the one thing I'm looking most
it
forward
feels
to
so
in the game,
nice
I
to
think,
be there.
is exploring the other.
Sounds like I need to join
solar
some of these
system.
play tests and actually
I
test
mean,
some of
it's
this
gonna be
stuff out too
it's gonna
myself
be,
here.
like, what, years out at this
Well,
point, probably
our
until
next
we
one
actually
here is
get there.
from Little
But I'm really
908.
excited
This
for
is
that.
from the forums.
Okay.
What is your favorite celestial body in Kerbal?
Ooh,
That one's easy. It's Eve. It's
Eve.
beautiful. It's haunting, and also once you're there, you're never going
Nah, all
back.
my homies hate Eve. Everyone hates Eve.
Solid
Eve
choice and
sucks.
reasoning.
Everyone loves
Cool.
nah,
Our next one
either
here is
Duna
user Starhawk
or
on the forums.
Lathe. It's the two
What has
best.
been the process of bringing a solid gameplay foundation, player progression, and KSP 2?
Sure. So when we're talking about player progression, uh, in the end, you're looking
Duna gang, Duna
for
gang.
really like what's the for any sort of game
Everyone
you're trying
loves
to think
Duna.
about
Duna's
like
great.
what are things that I want you to do, and then how does progression help give you both implicit and explicit goals in order to be able to perform that. So when you look at something like you know science or resources, those tend to be a bit implicit in what they're doing. They're just like, hey, I do want to progress along this tree, but I got a lot of ways in order to do this, and no one's directly telling you like, hey, go perform experiments here, guys. And so it's kind of an implicit thing, and that's I think like out of those two kinds of systems, the one that's a better fit for Kerbal and this particular player base that does like to experiment and explore and kind of just see what's going on. At the same time, explicit goals not only give like immediate things for folks, they're also really great for newer players who are just trying to figure out what is this game about? What can I do? It also helps, I think, more mid-range
Counterpoint,
players
Minmus has an
if your
all-you-can-eat
explicit
supply
goals
of
allow you to
ice cream.
explore
They
things
better
that
make.
are a little
when they
off of the
introduce
main
mining,
path to say like, hey, these are some other
they
things
should
for you to consider
they
as
should have it
well.
where you can like
Which
mine
is
on Minmus.
also
I know they
a
had
really
like
great
comments
goal
about
for
it, I think,
Kerbal
with the
because this
research
is
and
a
stuff like that. But
game
it'd be
that
cool to have like a
while
every
we
now
say
and then it's like
about
you
rocketry,
just put up a bit of ice
you
cream.
do
It's
so
weird.
many things in this game.
Definitely, yeah, that
Point
is
all
true.
we can all you can get on
Our
Dune
next
is
one here comes from
death souls.
K-Create on the Discord. What's the team's approach to converging on a design choice? I'm sure not everybody on the team agrees to how every system/mechanic is going to work. How does the team eventually reach a point that everyone is happy with?
This question is really like,
Are they gonna touch
how
on
does
like
designer design?
the overall UI?
When I go mentor
Like the flight
others, this is usually the question that comes up is like, how do I navigate a conflict? How do we come to an agreement across multiple people who have different opinions about like what are you trying to do? And really when it comes to design, like those differences are all subjective, and so it's like you and I could come at a particular problem with different ideas, and they can both be valid. And so where we begin is that designers develop an agreement on the basics on like what is the game we're making? Who are we making this game for? And that kind of becomes the common ground for everybody to advocate for particular solutions. The other part of this, I'm a fan of improv. I took a course for it. There's two big lessons that come out of that, which is yes and, which is you're not necessarily here to negate somebody else's opinion. You're there to be able to build something, and hopefully the two of you get to build something better than either one of you could have done alone. And the other one is make the other guy look good. And again, it's those two pieces kind of help build trust across the design team and build that openness, and also kind of build that. It's like, I'm not here with my solution and you're here with your solution. It's
I'm
we're
really
both
curious how
working
much the
together
design
to
team
find
has
out
done
what's the best
in the
path
background.
for the game we're
Like,
making. And for
there's
the players
obviously
that we
stuff
have.
that's not been implemented into the game yet,
Definitely.
or
We
is
see
in
that
the
every
game,
day
but,
with the team. It's
not
great to
fully
hear it.
implemented in. But I wonder how
Our
much
next
the
one here
design
comes
team is
from
like
user Leroy
done,
Jenkins
but
from
it's
the
just
forums.
not implementable right now, or
How
the
did you and the
development side
team
is,
learn about
you know,
learn about and
struggling to get
imitate
things in
real-world
just because
rocket
of
and
the
spacecraft
nature
systems
of
to ensure the
development.
realism of the game?
As a WoW player, good name. But also like there's a lot to this. So we have a handful of subject matter experts. There's Dr. Yuri Shumlak over at the University of Washington. He's the person that we tend to talk to when it comes to propulsion systems. We also have a handful of subject matter experts, particularly when it comes to colonies and celestial bodies. So we do have outside sources that we do consult. Internally, like we're reading white papers, and we have our own subject matter experts in house as well. When I initially joined the project, I knew Nate Simpson as that guy who had a metallic hydrogen white paper taped on his wall. And I was like, oh, this is what I've come into. But on top of that, there's Shalma who has a background in astrophysics. Even on the design team, we have Chris Adderley who has a background in aerospace. And so this game's kind of a rare intersection opportunity where you're not necessarily dealing with game designers all the time. You're dealing with game designers and people who are really passionate about aerospace, and
That's a
you all get to
complicated
kind of,
thing
like,
about it, right?
jam
Because like
together and learn off of each other.
that's something that
Definitely
really doesn't get
definitely
touched on.
a
It got
lot
touched
for
on a lot
everybody
in
here.
like the
Our next one here
path
comes
leading
from
up to release.
Brad Taniguchi on the Discord.
What is he gonna say?
What was the most difficult decision thus far with designing the game? Alternatively, what was the easiest?
But like an aspect of it is like the realism, like designing an engine
I can
to
answer
work
both of these.
realistically
The most difficult one, I think,
before you
was
could even consider,
establishing the roadmap.
bug tweaking
So
it and
we
making
started
it
from an
work
endpoint. We're like,
best it can. You
here's
have
the
to design
here's
it.
the game as
That's
a
something that doesn't
whole.
get touched on very often, at least in the
But when you go into early
discourse
access,
of
it's not
make
like, oh, I'm going to put
game
all
go
of these things,
faster and better.
at like 50% at once. You're having to think about like how do you build your foundation, and then for like each step, how do you continue to build the game in such a way that it's cohesive and enjoyable, and that took us months to sort out. And you still like have moments where you're like, are you really sure you want to put this one into this part of the roadmap? Can we move it sooner? Do you want to move it later? Like, there's always a little bit of wiggle that's going on. But like, bar none, like trying to think about how to take this absolute behemoth of a game and kind of like parse it out so that every time that we release something, players go, yeah, this is rad and I love where you're going. Super, super complicated to do. Easiest one, this was actually this is a super fiddly fine-tune answer. It's sorting parts by type as a default within the VAB. When we initially started, we sorted by size by default, but it was still causing some difficulty for people to figure out, like, well, where is this specific thing that I happen to be looking for? And then once we got sorting by type in, and we were doing more build playtests in-house, basically the art team rose up as one voice and said, can you just make that the default? And it's like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Fair enough. Our next one here is from Vicky
'cause I still have some
211
issues
on the
with, like,
Discord.
the VAB,
What is
like,
the most important
overlay. I
change
like
in
that's
KSP
sorted by type,
from
but
KSP 1 that you feel is overlooked by the community?
the search bar's still broken, right?
Ugh.
Isn't it?
Or-
Like, things
I don't
get
know
lost,
if it's
like the docking
overlooked
ports
as
and
much
stuff. I
as
seem
it
to
is.
not be able to
It's
find those a
small,
lot.
and it's all the little pieces that lead to approachability, that lead to more people coming in and exploring. It's moving away from opaqueness, where it's just like, oh, I hope you remembered this one fiddly piece over here. or else your day is ruined. Like, you want players to come in, try, fail, learn, try again, probably fail again, but keep that loop going. And that doesn't happen if your game doesn't give players the information and the guidance that they need in order to make those better decisions. And that's a real tough thing to do when you're also dealing with a complicated topic, which is rocketry and orbital dynamics and aerospace. And so, like, you don't want to run away and make that part any easier. So you've got to find a way how to, like, guide players into making, good decisions and, the game session length that they've got.
Definitely. I know I fail enough times till I figure it out, so that's good. Our next one here is from user Vortigaunt on the Discord. Most players don't know how to do reentry and land precisely. How will you teach players to land precisely near colony to deliver resources there? Or will we get instruments to predict landing sites for delivery paths?
They have to
there's
implement
a lot of
something
stuff
that's like
going
a
on in there.
pseudo mech jeb, right?
So
Like, even if it's like
first
a
off, the
super
tutorial suite that
expensive
we do
thing to
in
have on a
place
rocket,
is
it
basically
needs
the
to be at
beginning of
least
that suite.
to some degree an option
Something
for
that we
late
look
game
at for
stuff,
every
right?
release is just like, what more can we add in here? And that includes things like reentry, and that's not only like atmospheric reentry where you get to happily use parachutes as your answer, but also like, hey, how do you land on the mun, guys? That's something that is, I think, old hat for a lot of us, but is something new for people to figure out, particularly like, what numbers do I happen to be looking for whenever I'm doing this?
I don't know, some
Precision
system
landing,
where
I think, is another
you
one of those, and certainly when colonies
start,
appeared, that skill
like, you
becomes
make your
immensely
trajectory,
useful.
and instead of having to
We have
burn, it would auto burn for
writer,
you
Jim
to that
Peck,
landing zone.
did a handful
I
of
mean, again,
knowledge
that wouldn't be
shares
something that you
across
want
the
on
team,
every rocket,
and one
but
of the ones he
if you have a
did
colony of like,
was precision landing, and it really was like,
thousands of Kerbals,
we
eventually it's like,
recorded
yeah, I
that
can have
as like,
that
oh,
expensive piece of
here's
tech
like this
that's like a
bevy of
very late
information to think
game
about, because he's a
when
very
landing
thorough
becomes
thinker and a very
monotonous.
thorough explainer as well. And so when we get into something like precision landing, we've got the wealth of information internally to be able to like distill that and hopefully teach that to the community.
He definitely has a lot of knowledge. He's taught us a few things. Our next one here is from user the Tunnel from the forums. How long does it take to design a real world technology for Kerbal technology and still be realistic?
See,
I love all that
that's
you
what I was
do. The
talking
game
about.
looks amazing.
Man, it really depends. It depends on the part. It depends on the complexity of the part. It depends on like any sort of
engines
historical
alone are,
knowledge that
like,
you happen to have.
There's so much going on with an engine and its model.
I know that there are some parts right now that have a pretty fast turnaround that we're working on. But whenever you're working on something like an engine, or you're going to do like, here's a suite of parts, you really do have to like take your time thinking, like going through what's the reality of this, and then going, well, like, okay, so that's the reality of this. What gameplay considerations do I want somebody to have when they're using these parts? What am I enabling them to do? What am I challenging them to do? And can I do that in a way to where they quickly understand what's going on and what they're being expected to do in order to use this thing? And then from there we go into like, well, okay, gameplay wise, this makes sense. We know the user story surrounding using this.
Oh, hello,
we know that
welcome.
this is a part that is
Are they gonna
relevant and that we
ever
want to bring in. And then we'll start doing additional
implement
research. We'll do
something
white
like, not
boxes.
soon, but like, are they going to try to
We'll
implement
hash out,
something
like,
where
do we
like the
need to
heat
do a new
management?
part module
Because
in
isn't that a
order
huge part
to
of
account for
like
this new
real world rocket
functionality? Do we
travel
get to
is
use existing part
your engine
modules?
is getting too hot,
So
and
the
it's gonna
process really
like
changes,
risk
but
blowing
usually
up
like
or like
the
overheating
more a
the
thing
systems.
does, the more complicated.
Like on a real rocket, you can't have a thruster right next to a
more complicated
cockpit
the longer it
fuselage, you
takes.
know?
Got it. Fair. Our next one here is from user I don't know how to forum from the forums.
Fantastic.
What are your goals with regards to
Yeah, they've
balance
shown
these new
off
technology?
procedural
The intent for
radiators
late
before.
game parts to essentially
Yeah,
replace
thermal
early
runaway.
parts,
Yeah, I mean, it would
or for
be
lower tech
be a good
solutions
idea.
still be viable and
But would it
necessary in the
be-
late game?
That's an excellent question. So I think some of this is going to have like a mode-based answer for this. When you're looking at raw power, I mean, eventually, and certainly our hope as people is that some technologies will beat others out, like cars will beat out horses. So when you're looking at just like raw numbers,
Horse-based rocket.
you will see pretty much like straight replacements for things. But when you're looking at something like exploration, where suddenly, in order to build somewhere, you need
I mean,
to have
if you
the
think about
resources
it,
to be able
kind
to
of your mission control
build the
sort
thing that you're
of.
looking for.
Except the only data we
That
have
gives
access
us
to
an
is
additional
shows.
lever to make those
Yeah, kind of.
older technologies still
It's like, guys, what do I do?
relevant,
Help!
because perhaps those resources are more prevalent where you are.
Got it. Our next one here is from user, I want to say Cyclic from the Discord. Hi, Shayna. I was wondering how the KSP team balances the stats parts. KSP has many parts that aren't exact recreations of real rocket parts or future technologies that don't exist yet. Determining what stats like thrust, pulse should be sounds like a lot more involved than looking it up on Google. Could you give an overview of the process the team uses to determine the stats for, say, a metallic hydrogen engine?
Sure. And
Hmm.
hi, Cyclic.
Implement it. Throw it at the
so
community. See what happens.
Whenever we look at
That's it.
we're going to introduce new parts, we'll group parts into certain stories and goals, and that helps us set guidelines for overall behaviors, and that basically like sets our basics. So for example, you could look at like I'm going to deviate from metallic hydrogen because there's a lot more variables involved in there. But I'll talk about like command parts. So like a pod versus a lander versus a cupola. And it's like those three types of parts all have distinct stories that they have. They're used in particular goals.
Slap 9
And
cupolas on it on your rocket, and you're good
once
to
you
go.
have an agreement on like these are the types of parts and these are the goals that these types of parts should have, you get to start looking at like, well, these are the variables that we can tweak, and then you can start to set guidelines for this. So you can say like, well, okay, maybe command pods have a better heat tolerance than landers. Maybe landers have more capacity for EC and monoprop, because they're usually
Jesus.
detached from a rocket at some point, and so they need that extra storage. And so you get those guidelines in place, and then you start to derive formulas from it to be able to
But there's a difference between players that play for like
and then
min-maxing.
once you've got all that together,
and there's a
you
different,
start
and then there's the
reviewing
players
your
that play
data
for
against
design.
your known factors.
Like that's even been a
and
case
so,
since
like
KSP1. Like, yeah,
going
you could
back
make a
in the
rocket
engines,
that's
you may
like,
go like,
2.6
well, okay, how long
tons and is
does
like
it
the
take
tiniest
you
thing
to
in the
be able
world.
to perform
And it can
this
still fly and get
mission?
around to places,
Or
but
you know,
like
can this
someone's gonna
engine
make a really
actually
beautiful
handle
ship.
this
And I think it needs to
particular
be like
flight profile?
balanced a
How
little bit, like for
heavy
the two
is
different types of
this?
players.
Does it have enough thrust to where the fuel that it needs is going to be like can anything even lift off of the ground? Or you could say like, well, no, it doesn't have to do that, but the intent of this is to be built at an orbital colony, and so the profiles around building this thing in the first place are wildly different. It's a
I wanna
crazy
get into
number
that.
of
Oh,
variables.
God, I can't wait for that to come out.
Particularly for the
Orbital
engine
assembly.
sheet. Chris Adderley, I think, has
Oh,
like 3
I
or
want an
so
orbital like
engine
VAP.
balance sheets that you look at, and you just keep kind of like
form versus function.
You're
if,
sort of like
if it
best
only
fit
makes sense
guessing,
to
but at the
use
same
a
time,
handful of
particularly when
parts
you're talking
for
about
taking
near
off a
future
rocket from
technologies
like
or
an
things that don't
atmosphere,
necessarily
then
have like
what-
an analog in
then the problem is
like,
you get
a
into
true
this like
analog in
everyone's
reality.
design is going to look
You
exactly
do get
the
to,
same.
like, fudge a little to basically
So if there's
go
like if
well,
there's like
what's the
well
player's goal
it's
for using
pointless
this
to
thing?
even try to
Got it.
put
It's a lot.
like
All
a
right.
cupola on a launch vessel
We have-
as
we
its
have one from
main
the, from a user from the
section or
Discord
something.
here,
Then it'll
the cat.
I don't know. I feel like there'd
Are
be
the- are the-
it'd
are
be
new
too easy to
planets
like.
Are new
I
planets
feel like that
scale
should be
more
all purely
scientifically
aesthetic
accurate,
to some
or have you
degree.
kept this
Like aerodynamics is fine, but
size
like
for
heat
gameplay
tolerance
reasons?
being different. I
That
don't
is
know.
very
I feel like
strictly
that's a
we
bit.
kept the 6 scale
That's
size
just
for
me, but I feel
gameplay
like that's a bit
reasons.
superfluous and doesn't
Like,
isn't really necessary because
there's
there's
not
gonna be
too much
people who launch
to really get
burgers
into
into
this. It's
space
just
and
like
stuff like that.
if you do blow up the size, and I think you do vastly change the experience between the two games, and that's a very hard square to circle for a sequel.
Definitely. Our next one here is from a user on the Reddit, the Homeless Man 0.
Okay.
Will there be any additional things do or challenges on planets like wildlife, exploring cave systems, weather, etc.?
Man, there's like all of those examples there, certainly things that we've talked about. And if we talk about wildlife, then
And?
like Paul Zimmer will barge into this
Okay,
room
and
and tell me like, you need to listen to me and read this document right now. But the things that are happening immediately, is going to be science mode. Science mode is one of those first times where it's like, all right, here's a there's
I
a
disagree
there's
a
a
bit
design
because the difference
kind
between
of
parts
terminology
means
thing in
vastly more
place where there's
options
a toy,
and more
which
things
is
will make
basically
more
like
sense
here's a bunch of
for
things that you can
specified
do.
situations.
And
Doesn't
when
mean
you have a
can't launch
game, when
burgers.
it's like here's a bunch of
I
things you can do
guess.
and here's a goal. So science mode is the first time where we get to like take this toy into a game. And there's like the implicit drivers of like I need to progress through tech tree.
Bye,
I need to
Lejeune.
perform
Have a good
experiments,
day.
I need to fly missions
good
to distant
choices.
places in order
Don't do
to
anything I wouldn't do.
get all of that. But it's also the first time that we're introducing missions, and unlike KSP 1, we're looking at
didn't
doing
they say they were
bespoke
gonna do
missions, and
caves?
so we're
There's
taking a look
so
at
much
like
on the table
what's
for
really
this game.
cool
It's like
about the
not all of
celestial
it's going to
body,
get
what's really
implemented.
cool
I guarantee, even to the point,
this
even over the course of
particular
a
type
10-year
of,
development period,
of
not
flight
all of it
profile,
can get
or like
implemented.
what's something that we do in reality that we can spark curiosity about in KSP2, and you can build missions that kind of guide players into seeing like this is not only what you can do within the game, but it's also these are things that we're grappling with as humans.
Got it. Our next one here is a user from the Discord.
It's pronounced
I want
Legan.
bread.
Legan.
Will there be incentive to go to other
Lejeune
planets in the
Legan.
future, like special resources or things like the Monarch?
Short
I
answer,
didn't hear
yes.
that.
And I think it's just an extension of the further. It's an extension of the previous question. So, like I said, science is about performing experiments at locations. Exploration is when resources come in, and then things like the Mun Arch are strange locations, right? Surely we'll do something with them.
Add the pyramids.
Our next
pyramids
one
back
here
in
is
the
a user from
deserts.
Discord, Christoph. Will previous science parts from KSP 1 be in KSP 2?
Yes.
Parts will be different between the two games. This is one of the things that we explored as we were going through, like what are our plans for
Better not
science
take
mode,
away my gravioli.
what was working,
I'll
what can
throw
be
hands.
improved, what
I want
kind of
so many
stories do we
raviolis
want to
on my
tell
ships.
across science parts. And so in this case, the design team really hit on making sure that science parts are kind of focused on their own particular like building and flying and usage challenges. And so you'll see less, let me put a thermometer radially on my command pod and just so I'm able to perform this experiment. It's more like I've got this weird bulbous thing that performs an experiment, and I got to figure out how to build a rocket around this.
Still slap it radially. Just
we
slap
wanted,
3 of
we
them
wanted
now.
to make sure every science there are some science parts where this is an easier question of like how do I build and fly around this, but there are some that are pretty out there. But in the end, the common thread across science is that these experiments have they have a common core in reality. They relate to experiments and information that we care about in learning about just like what is going on with another planet. How
like what content of a planet's
what are its
surface is
challenges?
made out of ice cream?
What are its uses?
Is
Got it.
pole made
on
of
here
cheese?
we have one from the forums user Astro Guy. How will the resources be distributed across so many planets in order to give the player a reason to explore every world? If resources aren't the catalyst for exploration, how else do you plan on motivating exploration?
Please have a reason. I'm worried they're going to say, well, just because you want to explore.
I think there's a belief that, there's when you look at like, okay, I need resources and I need players to go and explore every planet. As a result of that, like there's like a very easy answer that you hit on where you're like, well, okay, every planet needs a different resource, right? And that's yes, that's an answer. But it kind of gates players into like they must do this or else they will not proceed. And that's certainly not a thing we want to do. We don't want to be prescriptive to the player and tell you, hey, no matter what, you got to go to every single place, even if you don't like it.
Why isn't this made of ice cream?
Resources.
Who knows? We have to run raviolis on it to figure it out.
Every planet has its own particular resource. It's also not like
this is actually a question that does struggle within Starfield. Why
instead,
explore
we're looking at like
and not on No Man's Sky?
What sort of resources happen to sit
Well, I
on
get
this
what
planet
they're
and
saying,
how are they
but
useful to your program? and that becomes very relevant
Maybe, I
when you
mean,
start dealing with like exploration mode
it
plus
could be
colonies where
combinations
you're
of
able to
resources.
build at
It's like,
different locations.
like I
And so
guess
you
you
may
weigh how
you
easy is
may
it to get to a
choose to
planet
build like
versus
a
what
mining
resources are
colony at
there.
one place because
You
you're
know,
like, I don't want to build here
how
because
close
it's
is the
really
planet to me right
obnoxious
now? Do I have
to
the
fly
ability
from
to
here.
get there? Is
But
it
it has a
worth
resource that I
landing on it
really
right now, or
need.
is it better to
And so
land
you
on
may
this other
build like
planet?
a terrestrial mining colony that schleps its resources up to an orbital colony, and that's where you're doing your real like building and flying business. But again, we're talking about resources. There are still other systems in place to be able to guide
Hell,
players into where
honestly,
they
for
want
me,
to
an
go.
incentive.
And
This is just
for
maybe
the
me, but an
science
incentive
release,
would be it's
it
like
is explicitly
just
like
literally
performing
like
experiments
give
applications
benefits to
and
expanding to
additionally
different planets.
performing
Set up a
missions
colony
that
on
will take
multiple
you to these
planets,
places.
and some
brings me
sort
joy.
of incentive, some
And
sort
that's
of
one here
reward
from
system for
Discord
that
user
could come into play.
CVUSMO. I can't
I
pronounce
just
that,
want
so
to
I
just
don't know if it's an
expand, just
acronym.
take over the solar
With
system.
resource management, are the resources we gather raw materials that need to be converted into usable resources? Will we need to build a refinery
I
system?
hope it's a super intuitive,
So
like
short
in-depth
answer
system.
is yes, you're going to gather raw resources and then you're going to refine them into what you need. Chris Adderley had a lot of fun making this production chain graph. I am hoping we as we get to do that release, that maybe we get to release that particular chart, because it's very helpful in kind of piecing together like how does everything flow
I guess it
into
makes sense
everything.
because like why go to Eve if you don't
Definitely
have
see about
to?
doing
It's
that.
super
Our next one here is
hard
a user
to,
from the
other than
Discord,
for
Tycho.
the flex.
When it comes
Yeah,
to
well,
resource
yeah,
systems,
exactly.
how many resources do you
It-
eventually decide to
there
settle
needs to
on?
be something,
Or are they
like,
still
even if
working
it's
on
like
settling on?
trophies
Should
or
we expect
something. I don't
something like
know.
one
There's something
unique
you could
resource per
bring back,
celestial
like
body?
a plant
Answered
specimen,
this a
bring it
little
back
bit
to
previously,
Kerbal,
but
run an
to give a
experiment
little
on it
more
there.
of a
Like maybe you have
specific
to go
number,
and bring stuff back in order to run experiments on
I
it.
think we're sitting
I don't
on
know.
like
It'd be cool. There's a
14
lot
or
of cool
15
opportunities.
particular resources that can be found towards the universe, and it really is like the focus tends to be more on like what does a celestial body have to offer in terms of propulsion, but there's also some other pieces there for like wanting to build specific
I'm sure
like
you get an achievement at
non-engine
least.
or
There's no achievements
non-fuel
yet.
parts.
No
So the
achievements
same
yet.
resource can be
You can
present
get one
in
of those
multiple
patches in the
locations, but the
Discord.
prevalence of it or the proximity to your existing infrastructure are big factors into choosing like where are you building and where are you gathering.
It's like a lot of exploration to be had. Our next one here is from a user on the Discord, Arthur Snow. In the previous AMA, it got said that colonies will be built using resources, but the resource gathering update comes after the colonies one. How will that work?
Ooh.
Yeah, this is one of those edge case moments where, remember when we talked about like what's one of the most difficult decisions you had to make, and it's about this roadmap. This is one of those edge case moments that appeared as we were breaking out features on the roadmap. So exploration does have to wrestle with resources.
Sandbox mode!
and science mode will
I
not
mean,
have to do that.
all the parts are just in there labeled
Uh,
TBD, like how the
and
ball is currently.
that's
It's like,
that's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
the
We
short
don't have a
piece
price
to
for
it.
it.
We
don't have
wanted
anything.
to make
Go.
sure that
Screw it.
exploration was about that kind of that additional piece. But yeah, that
Totally fair. Let's look forward to.
Is the
Our next
answer
one
we
here
don't
is
know?
from
Was
Reddit
that the
user
answer?
Master of Rodentia.
We'll figure it out.
Will there be an equivalent to mobile to the mobile processing unit in science mode? Why or why not?
Please give it an interior.
the answer here is no. We want to focus on the core experience of science. So what's this core gameplay loop of like, I need to fly a mission in order to earn science. So I need to have experiments on hand, and I need to go to a location, and then I either need to transmit or recover those reports in order to score science. And so that's like the basic loop of it. And because we're not like one-to-one cribbing off of KSP1 in this case, we want to make sure that the core loop is solid before we start adding parts that happen to break that loop.
The problem with the mobile processing one
totally
in
fair.
KSP1 was that it made
Next
it
one here is from a user
unnecessary
on
to
the
gather
Discord,
science from
Calm. At the
places
moment
for a
in
while. Like
KSP2
towards the end of my
and
run, I was
KSP1,
just
activating
running the
time
mobile
warp
process and
helps
like getting
all
500
craft
science per
rotation.
episode.
Was there
basically,
any
just
consideration given to
operating
making
like that.
rotation persist through time warp? Is this something that we'll see in a future update?
Yeah, and I fully understand that time warp under acceleration's current implementation makes long distance missions still pretty
Impossible.
difficult to do.
Impossible.
This one is something that we tend to consistently talk about. So I can't say when, but I can say, hey, we're talking about it.
Talking
I get that
about
it's
it.
not. I get that it's
Next
also
one here is
about the
from user on the
game,
Discord.
the game's ability to do it,
Buoy-
but it
buoys,
makes
boo-
no
boo-
sense that because time
booyahs?
warping should just be
Sorry.
treated as speeding up time for
Will we
the
get more
player,
clues
not
or
speeding up time
backstory to the
for
Kerbals, the Kraken,
know,
or Easter eggs
the
around the Kerbal
reality.
system.
Absolutely. Kerbal is a very interesting bit of lore building where I liken it to like you would see something from a FromSoft game where it's not like I'm going to sit here and have a dialogue with you and tell you everything that's going on, but there's kind of this environmental storytelling. There's these moments where like if you're looking at parts, you can start to learn a little bit about like manufacturers.
The only
and
lore
things
I
that they
care about is the
or,
Jedi
like, weird
Space
little
Agency
pieces
lore.
of
I
history
don't need
that
lore.
occur.
You don't need to give it lore.
And
If you want to, that's fine, but I'll ignore it.
I think that continues not only as
JSA
as we
lore is the
continue
only
adding
canon
parts
lore
and we
in
start
Kerbal
talking
Space Program.
adding more celestial bodies, but also particularly when we start adding missions, particularly those that will get you looking at some of those Easter eggs.
Modeling after FromSoft probably isn't such a good choice, but
Got
okay.
it, okay.
What is FromSoft?
Our next one here is from a user on the Discord, Link12313.
Mhm.
Are there plans to add the claw and asteroids into KSP2?
Absolutely. That question
Mhm.
is like, what release does that best slot into?
The first
Got
one.
it. Our next one here is from a Discord
Please,
user,
I want to
Space
redirect
Nerd
an asteroid.
1235. Will the rover cockpits get new
35?
modules?
Nate Simpson, if you're listening to this right now, can we have more of these? There's a parts artist on the team, Jonathan Cooper, who was kind of my touchstone as I was performing wheel tuning because he was super into making cars and rovers. And like he's made some really sweet things. He's made a Batmobile. I'm super into it. I want more cars. I want more rovers.
Well, I hope Nate's listening. I'm sure he is somewhere looking at this going, oh, here now another meeting about this
More
one.
wheels.
Our next one's from a forum user, No Kerbal Sky 08. Will there be slightly more advanced tutorials like going to other planets? Because I'm pretty new. So far, the tutorials from KSP2 have been the easiest to understand.
I'm
haven't even
super
touched
glad
the
that
tutorial.
KSP2's tutorials are getting you up and flying. And absolutely,
FromSoft
we
made
want to
like Dark
continue
Souls and
building on
Elden
these
Ring.
tutorials.
Oh, really brutal game.
Things
Just
that we
murders you
know
over
that
and
we
over
have in the
again.
wings.
To be fair, we murder Kerbals over and over again.
Landing,
I have never killed a
interplanetary
Kerbal.
travel,
Any
like,
evidence to the
basic
contrary is
troubleshooting.
incorrect.
Like, hey, if your rocket's doing
Don't
this,
start listing names.
maybe you should be looking here instead. Planes docking.
How well do you know your KSP1
when
lore?
colonies in Interstellar come up,
Do
they'll
you
wind
remember
up
them
having
all?
their own tutorial pieces as well because there are things that we want to make sure that we're there are skills that we want to make sure that players feel comfortable about before they, try to do it in their own game.
We love the animation on those too, right? Our next one's from a Discord user, Bacat. Are variants of engines and tanks like KSP1
Yeah,
planned?
but making space as a whole just
This is another
realistically
one of those
brutal
topics
kind of
that comes
gatekeeps
up
the
pretty
imagination.
frequently.
I mean, it's the balance,
So
right? It
there's
is a
always like
game
the
at the
question
end
of
of the
like,
day.
is
I
a
mean, I know it
variant
tries to
strong
be
enough to be
it
able
tries to be a
made into
simulator,
its own
but
part.
it's a game.
And when that happens, we'll
and I know
we'll
it's not
easily, like,
real,
break it
so I
out and
want to
say,
have
like,
fun
well,
with
okay,
it.
this thing and its
you
variant
know?
are now 2 parts. But
So if it's
there's still
impossible to
like
make, like I wanted to put a giant nose on
I
Duna,
would
but
like
right
to
now, and I don't know if
do
that's just a
just,
game, but I
you know,
think
like a
they
straight
kind of
visual
designed it
variant or
like the
something
type of
like
structure I
that.
wanted to build is impossible.
So that topic
can't
still
make a
comes
nose.
up.
I can't
It
land a
likely
nose on Duna
wouldn't
right now.
appear in the same form as it does in KSP1, but active talks.
Right. Our next one is from Reddit user Combat Pigeon 96. Well, I see that. I straight face. I'm laughing.
Rad.
Will we get part size categories larger than 5mm parts? It's like 7.5 m, and will the 1.875 m parts be making from the making history DLC?
And Fry, you
make
know
a
this. I
return?
know you need this, Fry, but when are they going to
Not
bring
fully
robotic
sure on the
stuff
making
in?
history
I want at
DLC
least
part
them
of
to
it, but
confirm
on the other end of this
when
about
that's
larger
slotted
part categories,
for, like, or at least when they think
100%.
which update is
You'll
it going to come in,
likely
like the science
see
or
this
the
appear
you
when we
know the
start talking
multiplayer
about
update? Is it going to come in
Interstellar,
the
because those engines
robotics
are gigantic.
again? It's a complicated
That is
system,
true.
but I know you're looking forward to
So
that
this next one
one.
is from Discord user L. Are there plans to increase the
ChatGPT.
complexity, fidelity, variety of volumetric clouds in future updates?
That alongside its performance is a pretty frequent, I would say, weekly conversation. We are continuing to work on this.
Hear that? We love clouds here too. The next one is from a Discord user, King Martin. Will there be scaling like wings now for other parts?
So yes, there's we call these procedural parts, where it's not like you bring it in and it just comes in as one shape and that's all you care about. There's a little bit of tweaking
They
to
said in
it.
the AMA that it was
I think the
coming, but
next
they wanted to get the
procedural
physics
part
engine
suite that we've
stuff
got coming up
go to order
is
first.
for
Yeah,
radiators.
but I just want to know if
So you
like
may see that
if they're
around the
planning that to be
time
an
that
end of like,
heat as
is
a
it going to
system
be like a
makes its return.
1.0
And this is one of those
release, or
topics
is it
where as we
like,
look
are we
around,
on
we see like,
1.0?
oh, there's a
No, we're
ton
on
of parts that
0.
are
What?
like this.
It's
They're
0.0.
relatively like
So like, is it going to be like at 1.0,
they're
or is it
either
going to
like
be
they're
like
relatively samey,
again like how
and we
KSP
want
one
to
it was
cut
like a
down on the
DLC?
sort of paralysis and the parts picker where you're looking at like 30 versions of this thing and going, what the hell is happening? But
Physics aren't important for
radiators
robotic arms.
and
Come on,
wings
have you
have
seen
that
a Frag
additional
Guy video? There's no
factor
physics.
where that shape does a lot towards your aerodynamic profile and also towards like really what their job is supposed to be. And so
Might
that
be
hits
after
the really sweet
1.0.
spot. And like those are the kinds of parts where you got like 100% that has to
I'm
be
really
a
excited. I
procedural
want to
part.
do
God, it
want to
makes
do
sense.
robotic stuff
The
more. I
next
didn't
one
get
here
into
is
that in
from
KSP very much.
user Jake Clovis on the Discord. Alternate atmospheric engines referring back to Eve. Will we have engines that can run on other atmospheric gases without a need for oxygen? Will we be able to collect gases from an atmosphere as part of the resource harvesting system?
That's a cool idea.
So not using oxygen for I guess like your intake air is something that we would want to put through its paces for authenticity and gameplay value. So it's like, is this a
harvested gases
thing
have weight.
that we
I guess it
do
depends on
or
the
could do? And then
gas.
like what do we get out of this? Are we just making like one-off parts at this point, which is tends to be something you want to avoid, or does it really kind of like open the field up towards like a whole new suite of parts and things for players to be able to explore? That's kind of like the beginning part of that kind of conversation. I'll write it down in my book to start thinking about. On the other part, though, there's a lot of good things in the atmosphere. There's a lot of things you want to learn about in the atmosphere. So I would be ready for Kerbals to start giving them some more attention.
Sounds fun to me.
IRL all gas has
Next
weight.
one here is from
and
Discord
SC
user
just ignores that,
Gil.
so you can get like 100.
Do you plan on adding
1,000 liters of
first-person
liquid
EVA
H2
so
for
that we can
0
see
weight?
the true scale of our Kraken inducing heaps of metal?
I I had not thought about this. I am not going to promise this. That feels like that's an interesting addition. Hey community, how y'all feel about that?
I
I
didn't
guess
hear
we'll
it.
have to
I
get
didn't
some
actually
answers
hear
here.
what
I'll
they
check this
said.
out after we're done. Next one here
Something
is
about a
from
heap of metal in the
Discord user
Kraken.
Acid Burn.
Mhm.
Will colonies feature automation gameplay within the colony? So not the delivery route system. It can look something like 1. Resource extractor building mines a raw resource. 2. Resource refinery building makes a usable material out of it. 3. Assembly.
Okay.
Hmm.
So yeah. There's a colony dev blog I did like a long time ago. There are still some like core pieces of that are important to keep in mind. The biggest one is that KSP2 is a game that is about building and flying cool rockets, and so that does mean that we don't want somebody to go, man, I want to go in and play KSP and I want to fly a mission to Duna, and then the first thing they have to do is spend 30 minutes doing overhead for their colonies instead of doing the thing that they intended to do. So like that's kind of the scaffolding for me saying like, yes, there's a fair amount of automation in place for colonies because we do not want colonies to be the thing that interrupts the core experience for the
Yeah.
players. What can my colony do is a manual action. We want players to be able to decide like, what is the purpose of this particular colony? And it's similar to rockets, is by, snapping pieces together to have that sort of functionality. But otherwise, like once things are up and running,
So you
we
don't
try to
want-
skew to automation to
you
let
don't want
players
dailies
focus
to be your
on the
life.
part of the
I
game
kind of feel like
that is
sometimes I want to
really
log in
important
and
to us.
do rocket
which is
stuff, but other
rockets.
times I'd be fully content doing
Very
a
good
whole
time to
episode
me.
that would be like
Our next one here is
managing a
from forum
colony.
user
You know?
Angelo
Maybe I'm
Kerman.
a little. I'm
With
too
interstellar
excited about
technologies and travel on the
Subnautica because I
roadmap,
keep
is
comparing. I was like, well, Subnautica
relativity
does
a-
this, and I'm like, this is a
Relativity
completely
a
different
thing
game, though.
in KSP2.
But like I like the way
KSP2 handle
Subnautica
time
kind of like
dilation effects
Subnautica has
while
like
traveling
multiple
at high
different
velocities
games
to
types
the
in like
target star
one,
system.
basically.
Nate
You know,
talks about
there's
this a
base
few
building,
times.
there's exploration, there's
in
resource
the pits,
mining.
and
I
it's
kind
always a
of
terrifying discussion when it
that's
occurs.
almost what I
I've got
kind of
no
want
other
to see out of
comment.
KSP too. But to a
Fair
different
enough.
at a different
Our next
scale.
one here is from Discord user Play Sue. What new fuel types will be available throughout early access, and will different biomes on planets yield different fuel types?
So I think one of the first big propulsion types that's going to come in is nuclear based. I think there's I think it's split up into two particular types, but as it comes to like resources and biomes, like for some reason Kerbin's not a hotbed for uranium. That's one of those pieces we do know about our resource mapping for exploration. And so for y'all who choose to play in exploration, that's probably about the first time you need to look outside of Kerbin in order to get the things you need.
Got it. All right. Next one here.
I swear they need to implement eventually, like, oh god, there's an asteroid's coming to impact the KSC. Go redirect it.
And what about telescopic landing
like,
legs,
even if it's like
Falcon 9?
Like a very late game,
first
like,
off,
you're gonna die if you don't
incredibly
redirect
relevant
this
question.
asteroid.
In more ways than one. So Tuesday, the internal design channel on Slack got lit up by Chris, given a couple of gridfin white boxes. He's like, "Hey, can you check out the shapes of these? Can you look at like the scale of these?" And so like we're coming together as a group, going like, "Okay, mostly it's about like what's the size of this thing versus the size of the thing that it's attached to." Tends to be like the big thing that all of us were looking at. It's like, do we have the right number and right sizes of gridfins in order to kind of meet player story needs?
I don't know if it should be limited to KSP2 is a game about launching rockets to funny little planets.
It's like
KSP2 is a game about launching funny rockets to planets.
I posed a question to
and
Chris,
then also there's a colony
I have
stuff,
absolutely
and
no
then also
opinion about
there's
this either way, but
you
why
can get
did you
out
choose flat over
harvest
curve?
resources,
And
also
I may not have like a big opinion about this because I'm looking and going like, it's not necessarily like a big gameplay driver. But Chris comes in there with like, I have reasons for this. These are my opinions about it. And it's like that kind of like spicy design chat is what I love to see. So
your main Earth colony is going to die, and maybe you have to make one. That's a great incentive right there.
I love hearing from Chris on these
for KSP. It's like you have about 1,000 years to get the hell out of here because you're gonna die.
Is there a possibility that we'll see the PAW part action windows returning?
Ooh, please,
sure.
please.
So folks are familiar with the part action window, which is the KSP one. Basically, like let me click on a thing and let me see everything this part does.
I'm begging you at
for
this
KSP2,
point. I need that back in my
unified
life.
This as the part action manager. The heart of that decision is in accessibility. So the part action window tends to be based on like, I need to be able to right click on this thing, which can be very difficult for certain people to do. And it can be very difficult for even, people who do not have any sort of disability to be able to do, depending on like the size of what you're looking at versus what you're trying to click on. But absolutely, it's got its own clear faults and challenges as well. This is a frequent conversation topic with the UX group.
Got it. All right.
I want them back.
Next one here is from user,
it wasn't
Discord user.
I don't know. It wasn't broken in the last one. It was easy. Tell us, open it when I wanted to, and close it, and pin it when I needed to.
Be before
for each part
in the tech tree. So, are the first missions in science mode more likely going to be uncrewed or crewed?
So I'll start by saying that there's like two cool points here. One, Kerbals are not people. Two, when we are hiring for a writer, this is exactly the question that I asked them. It's not necessarily not exactly this question, but mostly it was hey, if you look at the tech tree for Kerbal 1, crewed pods appear before probes. Narratively, tell me why. And it was one of those like, I really want to see in the moment, do you know how to take like this kind of like weird kind of like realistically janky bit and kind of turn it into like, well, Kerbal lore. Why did Kerbals happen to do this?
That's a good one. I might not have been hired for that.
Robotics being implemented in the future. Probably not.
Our next one here is from Discord
1.0.
user Sam.
A lot of work leading up to 1.0 release.
When very much looking forward to the prospect of colonies.
So after 1.0,
will adding our orbital colonies be similar to how we already make space stations, etc.? or will it work differently?
Survival mode.
It will work differently. Orbital colonies basically follow the same
Oh,
flow
come
that
on.
terrestrial colonies do, and so you'll have the same tool set that you would for both of those
Hello,
cases.
welcome, Gustav. Welcome
Right.
to the chat.
Our
We're
next one is
just
from
listening to this
Discord
AMA.
user Chair. Will
Chair.
there be procedural trusses?
Like in talking about procedural wings and eventually like radiators. I look at the truss section and I go, man, that's a lot of trusses. And so that's possibly a topic to bring up of like, do we want to collapse that part suite in some way? And if we do, then that
There's a
they
cool,
would
I don't
become
know, there'd be a
procedural at
cool way
that
to do
point.
trusses. I've been using trusses a lot
Right.
more.
Our next one here is
I
from,
like them in their current
Discord user
implementation, but
K-Create.
Mhm.
Will there be
rockets still fall
dedicated
apart
parts for
way
building
too
boats
easily.
and submarines? Underwater bases? Question mark?
Underwater
mean-
bases scares me a little. But
Subnautica?
we 100% want to support
Subnautica?
boats. And that's not only because
Fort
I mean
Kerbal.
KSP1 has a lot of really sweet boat content, which was certainly not expected. And we want to continue to allow that. But there's also some celestial bodies and other star systems that have some cool bodies of water of their own.
Underwater rocket launches
And
escape the
so
asteroid heading to
maybe
Kerbal.
that topic comes up when we start talking about those celestial bodies again.
I remember
Okay,
when I
we're
tried to
always
launch a
listening to
boat
your
last
feedback.
It just
And
collapsed and
dis-
spun
our last
uncontrollably.
question here is from Discord user Sunny54 Games.
Mhm.
Is the team at IG/PD happy with the current state of the game?
Oh,
I mean, so yes, we got something that we're proud of out into the community. We no longer have to like hide in the shadows anymore. We get to have very clear conversations like the ones that we're having right now, where we get to come in here and say like, hey, this is from our knowledge, this is what we think this experience is. Does that jive with you? And particularly for an absolutely massive sandbox like Kerbal, a team can rarely hit all of those points, and so being able to have the community as now a touchstone for feedback is gigantic, and we wouldn't be able to do that unless we were out. So
I like the one guy in the
we learned a lot of
KSP2
lessons on our
feedback
way
section
to early
that's like,
access.
like, can you,
The
I
team's
can't read
kind of
metric.
realigning itself
Can
to
you
be able to
implement
focus on
Imperial
features.
system?
We're
just
we're
got a
in
bunch of
here for the
clown
long
emojis.
haul. Where we are just as excited to be able to execute on this roadmap as we are to see y'all play it, and that has to happen from a very healthy spot. Like we don't want to sit here and say like, oh, we're going to crunch forever until the end of time in order to push all of this out. We want to make sure that we're
I do
we're
wish that
healthy
in
and we're
general we
thinking through, and the
could
things that we're
get more
delivering
developed games rather than
are fun
crowdsourcing the
and
development and
meaningful.
QA.
And that's for like
I
every major
think
release that we do. Every time that we do a release, we have to ask that
It
question of
is
like,
really fun
is
when
the
a
thing
game
that we're
comes out
about
and
to
it's like
put
done.
out,
It's like finished. I
you
mean,
know,
obviously
like
that makes
a
sense.
fun, meaningful,
But
cohesive.
I think this
game.
could have been done differently, but they
I'd
announced
agree,
it like
and it's definitely a
out.
blast working with
KSP2
you
is
here
out.
at
It's here.
Intercept.
And I think that was on
I'm just
private
saying that from
division.
the
I
same
have
room
to
here.
imagine that it was.
It is
Because
of the whole team here.
Like,
That was our last question, but I'd like
I
to
don't
end
know,
this on
it
do
just-
you have anything you'd like to say to the community?
This isn't a done
Any
game,
motivational
obviously.
words for the people out
but they
there?
acted like it's here. It's available. Like I
oh
think their
gosh.
banner on here even says like
I know, I put
KSP2
you on the
available now.
spot.
It doesn't even say early access anymore. It's like
like
this is not done,
100%.
and I think it should be advertised
Thank
that
you.
way.
As you know, my particular background in game development, my community interactions tended to be towards competitive games. You can imagine what that kind of community is like. They're one of the big drivers for really being excited to work on this project is that this community is spectacular from
It's
top
here
to bottom.
in early access.
from
It's ready
every
for you to pay
individual
us.
piece that everybody
Exactly.
does. From
Look, we
from
can talk
every
about this a little
unique
bit
story
afterwards.
that you
I think they're
have,
about to be. I think they're about to wrap up here. And
from
we can have a
every
little bit of a
pizza that
discussion.
you decide to take to the mun. I mean, thank you, and I hope we do right by you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I won't bring up cereal today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Thursday. And thank you very much for tuning in, and be on the lookout for many more of these to come. We love being able to communicate with our community, and we're always listening to your feedback. So thank you. Thank you, Shayna.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to the rest of the community team, because without Dakota, Virginia sitting here beside us, this would not be possible. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
All right. Did you ever play the really early build of KSP 1? I never did. And obviously it was, I don't know, it's so yeah, that was interesting. I feel like they're a little skirty around some topics still. Like some of the answers were kind of like very political non-answers. You know, the classic stuff. But no, they had some good, there was some good stuff in there. I just think it needs to be, you know, I don't know, it recognize that the game's not done. And it won't be done. That's why I haven't played as much of it recently as you know, I kind of wanted to. Is just because like I couldn't even, let's say I wanted to do a video on like just hanging out and exploring the surface, like get a rover and explore the surface of Pole or something, which I kind of had an idea for. I worked on a Pole video for about 12 hours probably in total over the course of like 4 days. And I was working on getting the rover design. Rover kept falling apart, all this, that. I mean, it was a cheese mobile. And the game is not stable enough to make that happen. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just get a basic rover. So I built a basic rover, and to even test out stuff on Pole, you know, I have to fly to Pole. And then that took another like several hours to even get that working. And right now, the fact that you can't run around to different, you know, planets, just teleporting over there to test things, like testing, that was a huge factor. But I think right now, the unfortunate problem with the development right now is that they're so spread out around all the different aspects of what they want the game and what the community wants the game to be too. Because let's be honest, we want the game to be big and vast and have a lot of different polished features. And so do they. But because it's a little bit more like they have to develop, they can't just focus on bug fixing right now. I mean, that's what their main focus is. But at the same time, they still have teams or groups working on, you know, designing new parts, preparing the planets, and preparing the gameplay features of the upcoming updates. Because if they don't, they'll fall behind on that, and that may just never come. So I think that's what's causing a lot of like for them not knowing what to say to a question like, when is this coming? Or what are your plans for this? You know, I don't know. It just feels a little, I don't know. They feel like even they don't have all the answers, because obviously they don't. They get probably cards from their higher ups and say, you know, and have to make that work out. So they don't want to commit to anything crazy. But I don't know. It's interesting. It's super hard to make a video on it. Like only live streaming it really works right now, because in live streams, if nothing gets done, it's like, okay, we still had a fun time live streaming. But if I'm making a video, I gotta get it down to like 15 minutes or 30 minutes at most, you know, to make it worth someone's while. And if I don't get 30 minutes worth of, you know, stuff out of it, or if I get way more than I can fit into an episode, it's hard to manage those right now. I do have one, again, that I'm still working on, and I just finished up Dredge. Dredge finale comes out tomorrow, so I'm gonna actually get another KSP2 video out. It's gonna be a Minimus journey. But it's I have so much to say, but like I don't know exactly how to say it or what hasn't already been said. Someone suggests something good. Write that down. And yeah, my question was answered. Your question was answered? Did you have a question? Did you submit a question in the AMA, or did I answer something? Did I answer something? I don't know. Code miners have found a lot of features in the roadmap that are significantly finished. Exactly. So obviously it's a little bit like, you look at the development of other games, and if they were, I think they got too excited in development about sharing all of the stuff they have planned. Like, let's say they never told us that there was like, you know, maybe they mentioned, yeah, there's probably other solar systems, but let's say they never mentioned it. They just never showed anything. Like they said, yeah, we were considering it tonight. You know, even just don't mention it, or don't mention like colonies. And obviously, you know, a company like Private Division isn't going to let that slide, because that's a big selling point. That's a big advertising point, especially for people who've already played KSP 1. But if there was stuff that we didn't even know about before, it was like almost right. I think it's like the Minecraft principle. Like Minecraft struggled with that recently. Like they had all these things, they talked about a lot of stuff, but they got spread too thin, and then they couldn't provide a lot of the features. So they just stopped telling us. They just stopped telling people what was coming until it was pretty much 99% done, at which point it was just fine-tuning, getting a little bit of feedback, and then releasing it. And I think that KSP2 has found itself in a similar situation of just like, there's so much in every question. Like, if it was like, hey, only ask us questions about bug fixes in this one, it's like there's still 1,000 things that people can ask, and they're never going to be able to narrow it down to like figuring out exactly what the community is looking for. It's kind of No Man's Sky all over again. Hey, this is going to be cool, and then on release it flops a bit. Yeah, it's basically like that. Although it's a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit different because at least, I mean, No Man's Sky was just empty. I mean, it's almost like, I guess imagine like Cyberpunk. If Cyberpunk came out and it didn't have like missions. It was just explore this world right now. You know, design your character, interact with other characters, design the world, and then it was equally as like prone to bugs as it was. And so then it's like, do they fix the bugs, or do they start implementing new features to flesh the game out and then worry about the bugs? It's like, you know, at least when you have everything into the game, at least fleshed out. Like, I don't know. I would have easily, and obviously it's not up to me. It's up to the publishers. But if it was up to me, it's like, wait a whole other year, wait 2 years, wait 3 years if you have to. This game should have come out with at least one of the roadmap features already implemented, whether that be science, whether that be, I think it should have been, you know, release in early access with all the stuff from KSP1 as it is now, but also, hey, here's big parts that you can take and explore some of these other planets. So there was at least something newish to do, you know, in the game, rather than just go to the planet again, sit there, okay, have fun. Basically anything from CD Projekt Red. Coffee, it's kind of like how Coffee Stains is Satisfactory, and I think it works out pretty well. If the community is hunting bugs, in my opinion, you're not really a good dev. Community can help. I think there should be less bugs by the time you give it to a community. There can still be bugs that can be found. I mean, that's the whole, think about Minecraft. Again, think about Minecraft. They release snapshots. Snapshots have horrendous bugs in them. But there's never any like, this is terrible. How dare they release this snapshot? Because it's a snapshot. Like, what if they rolled out a tiny little thing? It's like, here's your experimental features in KSP2. Roll out this feature just so the community can play with it and give some like micro feedback, but not like, don't release 1,000 things in like a snapshot. Just like, hey, here's a planet. You can teleport to it with your vehicle now because we don't have the ability to get, you don't have the ability to get to it right now. But tell us what you think about the surface stuff. How do you like cave exploration, you know? And then you give it the community a chance. That's when early access comes into play. But when your game is to the point where, how have they not fixed auto-strutting? That's like, that would have been, I don't know, that would have been my top priority. Because that's the thing that makes the game unplayable right now. Damn all the other stuff, you know? Like, you can get around some of the other stuff, but right now, you can't get a rocket off the ground without 1,000 struts. It still bothers me. KSP2 crashes all the time, right? It shouldn't do that. I haven't had it crash. Yeah, I guess if you're considering, for me, I've experienced the loading to the VAB and the game just stalls on the loading page and you have to restart the game, which can sometimes corrupt the save file. Yeah, that's, to me, that's not early access. That's pre-alpha. That's like first build, like, you know, experimental, but that's demo territory right there, which I just finished. I just played a game today. Haven Doc just came out today, and I was like, oh, should I play this? And they had a demo, and I was like, oh, cool. And the demo had like a lot of the features in it. I mean, some things were broken in it, but it was like most of the features were unlocked because I actually played the full games today, and I was like, wow, that's, you know, that was a good demo. But it was free. So a completely free demo where you can play most of the features right then and there. And I assume that game is going to have a lot of expansions. You know, fingers crossed if it does well. Play Haven Doc if you're into base building, fun little colony people. It's like a little dock expansion game. I'll have a video out on it in a couple days. KSP2 hasn't crashed much for me after the first big patch. Tons of weird physics still, but program stability has been fine. I still get bad frames, but yeah, I think crashing's been a little bit less frequent. But if I do the wrong thing, it'll crash 100% of the time. This is an argument I had recently on another topic where there's a difference between I want to thinker on this thing, and I want a tool to work. KSP2 is a game that you want to just work. If there was, and I know they talked about it, there's got to be some. I mean, I don't know code for shit. I'm talking, everything I say is out of my ass. So there has to be some sort of switch that's like turn off the, the joint, all joints rigid to a fault. And that's something that you can toggle. It's like if you want to play with the potential, but like, and I know they said they don't want it, like they don't want to turn rigidity to the point where you can make a 9-mile high rocket and it's perfectly structurally sound. But like, I don't know. I feel like in KSP1, there was the ability to make rockets that is like, this wouldn't work out in real life, but because of the way the physics of the game works, it's fine. Like you make a big loop wing, right? And all those joints, technically if you put all those random pieces together, but the idea is that we're playing with the tools that we're given. So that would be in real life a big solid piece made of smaller parts that are all like interwoven together. But like in KSP2, if you tried to make a loop wing without massive amounts of like struts put on there, even with going into the config file and messing around with stuff, it wouldn't work. It's just going to collapse either on the runway or at some point mid mission. That's when I get pissed off, is when mid mission everything's going fine and the game just everything's gone. That's why I feel like I can't prep videos. Like even people who do like the time-lapse type videos like Matt Lown are like, yeah, what you're not seeing is that I spent like 3.5 hours trying to get this to work, and this is like attempt number 12, of this rocket takeoff. And it's like, yeah. But again, what are we? We're like a month and a half into this game at this point, and they fixed some things, but there's a big elephant in the room that's not being fixed, and it makes it hard to play. So, I mean, I like what they were saying, but I feel like they skirted around some of the bigger topics, like, I don't know, it's whatever. Got to drop Been Fun. Yeah, I'm gonna go too, because I just wanted to live stream the actual thing. I'll do another live stream soon. I have an idea for a game I want to do on live stream. Would you guys be interested in Minecraft Legends? I'm considering buying that and doing a live stream on it, but I don't know if I might drop a poll or something, because it's expensive, but it might be a good idea to do on a stream. It'd be fun. I went one sad, I'm leaving. I mean, I'll still be in the Discord for a little bit. I mean, everyone can verbal or like text chat, but yeah, it was a weird, it's a weird situation to be in with this game. Like I want to do more stuff on it, but what do I do? What do I do at this point? I don't know. Do I run a whole mission to Elu just to get destroy? I don't know. The Minecraft RPG looked pretty neat. Yeah, it's like it's basically the Minecraft RPG that just came out. I was giving it a couple days just to see like, yeah, if there was any like things that needed day one patches or anything on it. But if it's something you guys like to see, I'll do it. I'm gonna do that in a couple days or so. But either way, all right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I know this is a weird impromptu-ish stream, but I will see you all later. Thank you for tuning in, and new episode should be out. Dredge finale should be out tomorrow, so watch that. And a new KSP2 video coming out eventually. It's on, my premiere is open right now. So, all right, everyone, peace out. Have a great rest of your day.